Ricardo Alves. I am Portuguese. I work for a Portuguese company called Eurotux or Eurotux, as you prefer. And we do essentially professional services around open source software, Linux, Apache, etc. And also software development, generally content management solutions on top of Plone and Zope, including internets, large portals, public websites, institutional websites, collaboration, etc. This talk, I called it Moving an Old Style Product to Plone 3. The main objective is to explain the main pieces that change between a product, an add-on product for Plone 2.5 to Plone 3. Just to make sure we are all on the same page. This is intended for integrators and developers, but developers or new developers or developers that learn to develop with the old Zope 2, Plone 2 patterns, and now are struggling to update their add-on products. There are lots of add-on products. They are out of date, and this talks about that. It's about the main parts that need to be touched to upgrade the product. So the talk is divided in three major parts. We have, I'll explain the example. It's an example product. It's an add-on product that features the most common features that add-on products add to Plone. Then we'll try to get it working with Plone 3, just get it working. And then try to make some changes to make it more extensible, more taking use of the component architecture and benefit from Plone 3. So about the example, it's a product called Tux Live FM. It's just an example of a product that features some content types, archetypes based for the website of a radio station. It has a mixing class, it has a new portlet, and it also adds some skin layers. So these are probably the most common features that add-on products add to Plone. Just to show it working with Plone 2.5. This is an instance of one of the content types is radio show. Just a simple schema, body text, and image to describe. And it can have episodes. I'll add an episode. And there's some file. It also has, so this is a custom view for the content type, and it also includes, sorry. Sorry. I'll just fix the action. Never mind. We'll see it. Great. Give you a look at file structure. So it's a common file structure, content directory with content types modules. This is the radio show content type. The schema and archetypes attributes that will be added to the factory type information. And the class is inheriting from a mixin. It's a series mixin. It's a mixin class that simply had some methods to search for episodes, and so we can have this feature in several content types that are shows. Everybody is familiarized with development with archetypes, right? Okay. So getting back. So this is a file structure. It's a common structure. We have a portlet. We can see it here. The portlet simply includes a link to the last episode. Okay. So this is just a simple example of a product using plone 2.5. The intention is to show how to change these components to put it working with plone 3. So to get it work, some of these advices are all included in a plone upgrade guide. I don't know if everybody read that, but it includes lots of information about what changed in the code, generally API changes for add-on products. Okay, the plone upgrade guide in plone.org/documentation. Probably the most common change that breaks code in add-on products when we try to run it in plone 3 is CMF core permissions. This line, it's pretty common in old products. It needs to be fixed for permissions. Okay, I'll show it. Just as an example, there are others, transaction in archetypes and then it's not necessarily, it's not mandatory to put it working to use generic setup, but I'll put it in this section because it's, if we want our product to be used in plone 3, we want it to be used as a dependency of other products, then it's important to use to define the installation with generic setup, define a profile. Right now we have installation based on the install method. It includes information about, can you read this? Sorry. Need to change it. Colors. Looks like this. Can you read now? Okay. It includes installation of new content types. This is the old-fashioned way of install types, using the install types of archetypes. Then register them in a portal factory. Install skins. Okay, this installs all new layers in portal skins tool. Register style sheets in a portal CSS, new resources. new actions, and the action icon for that action. If we run this in plone 3, we'll get only some problems with some API changes in the tools, but we're going to replace this with the generic setup ones. Okay. So first, with generic setup, we register the profile in the directory default. Now we are building the new product in the new version of the product, right? We are changing the product for plone 3. This is the old install types. The new one, we create a types XML file in the directory of the profile. I'm not getting into much detail about this. I don't know who is experienced with generic setup. Okay, not so bad. I can show you the new directory structure. This is a version working with plone 3. We have a profiles directory and a default profile and XML files for each step of configuration. We have a step for types, a step for skins, for CSS registry, etc. So we create a types XML. It defines the new content types the product will add to the site. And for each one, we create a XML file inside the directory types. Okay. Is not complete. I'll show you the complete file. Basically, this will replace the FTI information in the content type. Okay. We won't need this anymore. Most of them. Archetypes was reading this, and when installing the type, using these values, now we are explicitly saying it in generic setup. Moving on. Skins. Actually, going back, I can show you the profile. Here is the file for radio show and for radio episode. It's the other content type. This is a file that we need to create for each content type. If we have problems creating this file, we can always look at CMF plone, the default profile, or in the previous version, in a site that already has generic setup, try to export the types, and we get this structure at least. Okay, skins. This was the way to install skins, running the install subskin. With generic setup, we create a skins XML file and register each layer. We have only one layer. Here is TuxFM Live templates, and then we add it to the path. This means we register the layer, means we register it to be, so the skins tool will look at the directory where the templates live, and here we say for the skin plone default, we want to use this layer, so it will add the layer here in the path for plone default. Okay. For CSS, so this is the old code and registration of each style sheet. We have a CSS registry XML, and for each one we have a new directory. Now, for portlets, it's one of the components that really changed in Plone 3. Now we have plone.portlets, and the old portlets were based on simple templates with a macro registered in properties. Are not used anymore. We have two options here. We can convert legacy portlets using the Plone interface. When we access the portlet management. I'll show you. We can convert legacy portlets that are registered, okay? Basically, it will create a classic portlet, which is a special case of portlet that will use the old portlet, okay? That's what we are going to do, but with generic setup. Since Plone 3.1, we have the possibility of create new assignments, portlet assignments, through generic setup. We specify the manager. Plone has two portlet managers created already, Plone right column and left column. We want to create a new portlet specific for a content type, my radio show. In the right column, it's classic and uses the old template and this marker. Okay. So I don't have to re-implement the portlet. Of course, there is the other possibility to implement a new portlet using Plone portlets with special schema, with special properties, so we can set up the view, etc. I think there is a talk about Plone portlets, so it's useless to get into much detail. You can watch that talk. Now, this will put it working, okay? So, for this specific product, portlets, broken code, and generic setup will put it working with Plone 3. Now that we have it working, it's good to take some benefit from Plone 3, and one of them is to use the component architecture, okay? It was already available in Plone 2.5, but in Plone 3, it's easier to use it. For example, my radio show inherits from a class, the mix-in, that is providing some methods for content types that include episodes, okay? Then the natural replacement for mix-ins are adapters, so we should define an interface for this behavior and then implement an adapter. The new interface, and then register an adapter. I can show you the adapter. Here it is. We say it implements our interface, and it adapts iRadio show. But who uses this is a view we have that's a search view for episodes. Let's see. Oops. I have no episodes. this condition. This view, it searches for episodes inside our radio show, and it uses the methods defined in the mixin. Where is it? Here is the old version of the view. And it calls this method search episodes in the context, which is a radio show object. Now I want this view to perform this search in Python, in the Python implementation of the view, and use the adapter. So it's a simple view. It has a search episodes method. It calls the adapter and performs the search. The new template simply calls the method in a view. So it is using the browser view for templates. Yes.
So your browser would think the HTML file as the I guess hooks the view to the page, the class to the page. So when you call view dot method name, that inside your template file, that then why it works basically.
I'm sorry.
Can you go back to the code that shows
Yeah.
the
Okay.
next thing you call here search episodes, right? No, view
Yeah.
dot search
It was here search episodes. Now it's view search episodes. Yeah.
And the view is actually defined in the browser.
The view is registered here. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
To define a browser view, we set a view. We say what's the class, what's the template. We can define the template also in the view in the class and the permission. This is the ID the view will have to be accessed. Okay. Now, since we changed our product, we changed our code. It's good policy to have deprecation policy. Okay. For example, our mixin, if another product, for example, was using that mixin, we should warn that it's not the best way to do that. So we can use op deprecation to set up deprecation periods. Deprecation warning, and we should have a deprecation period that should be consistent. I would say 1 or 2 feature releases to remove the feature completely. So the feature is there in the new version. But here is the mixin. But there is a warning. Okay. Okay. Any questions to now? More questions? No? Yes.
You know how you did the assignment for the Portland?
Yeah.
Where's that code go? Does that go in the CCML file?
On the portlet.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, this goes to portlet's XML file. It's a step in generic setup. Okay.
Okay, so this would be in the profiles.
In profiles, yeah. This is a different kind of portlet. If we create this through the web, it would be inside setup, types, select our radio show, and here it is. Okay, it's 4 types. It's not assigned to a specific context. Yeah.
Can you show that CCML file for the, no, I'm sorry, the XML file for the portlet import?
Portlet?
Yeah, right, got it?
It's this one.
This creates a classic portlet.
Yeah. A classic portlet.
So the portlet code has never changed.
Yeah. If we, well, it's the best solution would be to create our own portlet, okay? But so we can get rid of the template in the old CMF skin layer. But this is probably the best solution for most of the cases. But in terms of future and in terms of future plone releases, the best would be to create our own portlet. So, specialized behavior. Try to create new components so we can we get a bigger directory listing for our product, more files, but more but short files also, and more specialized, so we can reuse it more easily. Now, there's also, I didn't include this in the product, but there's also a change we can do with archetypes to make it more compatible with the component architecture, which is to create a schema interface with the same schema as the archetype schema, and then use AT-field property to set a field to behave like a Python property. Okay. This is also one of the advices in Martin Aspelli's book about making archetypes more compatible with interface schemas. For example, for other uses, other features that require this interface, we can make use of it. Yeah.
So, what are the minimal requirements to have a 2.5 product registered? So, 2.3.
Well, as I said, they're little, because to get it work, you only need to make it install. Okay. The install method in the old versions, you can't say for a product or for without looking at the code, because it may be assuming certain attributes, certain methods that are not there anymore. Okay. Using generic setup, you ensure that. Then you have problems with broken code and portlets. So this in respect to the main features provided by the plone core. Okay. Other add-on products, you may have other problems.
I probably just missed it while you were saying it. In the old archetypes, you had, the definition of fields that belong to that archetype. I didn't see that.
Sorry? No. I didn't put it in the code. But it should be put here, okay? You must say that, for example, body. It's an AT field property. it's not necessary to be Unicode. And so you can access body as a property. Okay. This is for,
You leave the schema definition there, like
yeah, schema definition. And I must replicate the definition in the interface. Okay. I have an interface file. For radio show, I don't have anything, but here I must have body schema text, okay, and for other fields. Okay. So, yeah.
When you're using the AT field property to sort of propertyify the fields, isn't it also important to make sure that your schema is using not the default attribute storage, but rather something like annotation storage so that you don't end up with
Yeah.
collisions?
Exactly. You need to use annotation storage. I'm not using it. Actually, yeah. I didn't make this in the code. You need to use annotation storage also. So here you need to say storage. Something like this.
Can you go back to the slides where the two things you have to do?
Yeah, it's missing the storage.
So we have you have to create the schema interface, then the AT field property so that you do a get
Yeah.
based on the.
This is the most probably the most unnecessary change, okay, to make it work. It's more think about the feature of the product. If we want to use new stuff that requires an interface and a schema to work, we can probably put it working with this, okay, and keep archetypes, at least for now. More questions? So this is a new structure. It got bigger, but more, let's say, more specific. We should also, we can agify our product, so use Pacer to that, and then get a structure like this, and we put the product here. References. The plone upgrade guide. Okay, it's the best reference for upgrading new products right now. It includes information about add-on products specifically between versions 2.5 and 3.0, and it's the best source. Okay, I'll put this code in collective. Okay, but soon. It's not yet. Huh? Yeah, the two versions. Okay, I'll make a branch. So, more questions? You already have some.
So just make sure I understand. So you didn't migrate your data from a 2.5 to a 3. You literally upgraded to 3, replaced your 2.5 with your 3.0 code, and your same content.
Yeah.
Kept the new.
Yeah, there's no changes in the schema, so in this case you won't have any problem. Okay. In some situations you may have to write a migration path. Yeah.
Oh, I missed, so he was saying, he was asking whether or not you had to actually upgrade the data.
Yeah.
And basically you're saying don't because the schema hasn't changed.
Yeah. Yes.
That's correct?
Yeah.
So-
Well, yeah. It depends on the situation. You must know if you are going to break your objects. Okay. You have a database. You upgrade plone. You run the upgrade process in the port migration. And if your products also need some migration path, you should write it. Okay. In this case, it wouldn't be necessary.
In this case, you could, okay.
Yeah, in this case.
Thank you.
It's not, look, even when the schema doesn't change, you may break the site. It depends on what you're doing, okay? Views may require some method that requires some field that is required or something. Depends on the code. Yes?
You were talking about using AT field property what are some of the reasons why you would want to have that? What are some of the future uses that you see with that?
For example, if I'm not mistaken, I need it for collective.lead, so I believe. Well, other products that require an interface, they work with an interface, they don't know archetypes, okay? So they require a ZOP interface, and you can replicate it and make it work, keeping archetypes. Any more? Yeah.
Can you go back about 2 slides?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see it again.
Here you would put the product. Okay. I'm using the template plone, but you can use other templates. Depends on what you want. But here the template won't matter a lot because we already have our product. Yes?
So in this case, you can actually, after you run paster, you can then take your old product, ZOP2 product, and basically drag and drop it inside products Tux Live FM. Then
Yeah.
what you have to do is,
You need to include it then in, I don't know, in a build out and, sorry?
it's not your source directory, then you have to eggify it and then add it as an egg to your buildout.com.
Sorry.
So
Yeah.
after you then put it inside
Oh,
this directory, then you create the egg,
yeah.
and then with the egg, you can then add it to your build out.
Yes, yes. You need to do that. I'm not showing that part. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Everybody can leave, but stick with my questions. When you use generic setup to help you export the XML files,
Yeah.
you're doing that from a 2.5.
Well, yes, you can do from a 2.5, but it will, I think you will have some, I'm not sure, some problems with some types maybe. Okay.
So basically, you export it and then
I'm not,
find out what problems you have and you fix those.
yeah, it's a way to generate a file. I don't remember of any specific problem, but I think, well, I don't want to speak in the dark. Okay.
Did you have any with your product?
No, not with mine. Yeah, and I export it.
It's straight from generic setup?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Okay. No more questions? No more. Okay.
I'm just curious, off the top of your head, I'm thinking about those attribute collisions, the field property thingamajigs. Do you happen to know where ZOP3 schema stores its stuff by default?
It doesn't store.
So there's
It only defines. Okay.
Annotations. Sorry, annotations are in sub underscore annotations.
That would be
No.
a good place.
Archetypes will store it in annotations, but you defining it as a property, it can be used as a property. Okay. So, but so it will store, if I'm not mistaken, as underscore something. But the interface itself won't store anything. Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.